They call him Cheetah for a reason. Tyreek Hill isn't just fast. He's the kind of fast that makes defenders look like they're running in slow motion. But there's much more to Hill's story than highlight reel touchdowns. From a turbulent childhood in a small Georgia town to jaw-dropping records on the biggest stage, his path has been a series of second chances, controversies, and moments that left everyone speechless. Tyreek was born into difficult circumstances in the quiet town of Pearson, Georgia. His parents were only teenagers when he arrived, and it wasn't long before legal issues and financial hardship tore the family apart. Raised primarily by his grandparents, Herman and Virginia Hill, Tyreek watched them drift in and out of trouble. Despite their own challenges, they gave him a roof over his head and instilled in him a deep sense of gratitude, so much so that he proudly took their last name. From the time he was a toddler, the people closest to Tyreek noticed he had a gift that set him apart. During simple backyard games of catch, his grandmother would marvel at how she could never keep up. By the time he was 5, his grandfather had him laced up in pads, playing youth football. Even at that age, his speed was so overwhelming that kids a year or two older struggled to bring him down. Even though football had Tyreek's heart, it was actually track and field that first rocketed him into the national spotlight. In his freshman year of high school, he was surrounded by coaches who saw glimpses of his enormous talent, but weren't entirely sure how to harness it. Sensing a need for a better athletic program, his grandparents took another risk. They uprooted their lives so Tyreek could attend Coffee High School, a place where he might flourish. And flourish he did. On the football field, he was a dangerous running back, capable of outrunning defenders with astounding ease. But it was his decision to run track that transformed him into a local legend. As a junior and senior, Tyreek broke records in the 100 meters and 200 meters, setting times that rivaled Olympic sprinters. In fact, he missed one national high school record by just 1/100th of a second, a near miss that still raised eyebrows all over the track world. Yet, while fans saw a blazing star, Tyreek was juggling a harsh reality behind the scenes. His family struggled to keep the lights on, and more than once, he had to crash at a friend's house or go to bed in a dark, chilly room. Late at night, he'd try to comfort his grandmother, who was distraught over their financial hardships. That persistent stress eventually spilled over into his academics, casting a shadow on his dream of attending a major university. Despite being one of the hottest names in high school track, Tyreek's grades stood in the way of Division I football programs. Instead of signing with a top school, he wound up at Garden City Community College in Kansas, determined to pull up his GPA and keep his future alive. At Garden City, Tyreek became the ultimate utility player. Coaches put him at running back, receiver, wildcat quarterback, and anywhere else they thought they could exploit his speed. He piled up rushing yards, caught touchdowns, and terrified defenders on special teams. While fans saw him lighting up the field, Tyreek quietly repaired his academic record, inch by inch. After 2 seasons in community college, he had transformed himself from an academic risk to one of the top JUCO prospects in the country. Offers poured in from Alabama, Florida State, Oklahoma, and several other powerhouse programs. The next stop on his winding journey ended up being Oklahoma State, where big crowds and bigger expectations awaited. As soon as Tyreek stepped onto Oklahoma State's campus, he made waves in both football and track. On the field, his all-purpose yardage shot through the roof. One minute, he'd catch a pass over the middle and turn it into a breakaway touchdown. The next, he was racing down the sideline with a kickoff, leaving entire coverage units in the dust. But just when it appeared his dreams were finally taking shape, it all came crashing down. Accusations surfaced about a serious domestic dispute, and Oklahoma State immediately cut ties, dismissing him from both the football and track teams. This wasn't a minor team infraction. It was a full-blown legal scandal that could have ended his career right there. Media backlash was swift, and every major Division I program backed away. Desperate and facing a dim future, Tyreek battled with remorse and confusion. He spent months in limbo, unsure if he'd ever see the field again. During that time, he made no shortage of phone calls pleading for a second chance. Most schools shut the door without a second thought. That was until Brett Gilliland at West Alabama decided to pick up the phone. Initially, even he was skeptical. He'd read the reports, listened to the criticism, and wrestled with whether adding Tyreek to the roster was worth the controversy. But after talking to former coaches, teachers, and mentors who vouched for Tyreek's effort to be a better person, Gilliland offered a lifeline. For Tyreek, it wasn't the glitz of a major Division I stage, but it was everything he needed, an opportunity to show he could still play, and he didn't waste it. He racked up over 1,000 all-purpose yards for West Alabama, proving he could deliver big plays in the passing game, on on the ground, and on returns. As exciting as that was, the question loomed: would any NFL team look past his troubled history and draft him? When Tyreek entered the NFL draft, analysts pointed to his off-field issues and placed him on the undraftable list. He didn't receive an invite to the NFL Combine. Most scouting reports predicted he'd sign as an undrafted free agent, if anyone was brave enough to take the risk at all. But come draft day, the Kansas City Chiefs decided to roll the dice in the 5th round. It was a jolt to the fan base, many of whom were angry at the team for bringing in a player with such a high-profile incident in his past. Head coach Andy Reid, known for rehabilitating players with troubled backgrounds, stepped forward to justify the pick, citing the team's diligence and Tyreek's sincere efforts to atone. It didn't take long for Hill to begin changing minds on the field. His rookie year, he started out as a return specialist, and from the moment he touched the ball, it became obvious he was different. Defenders took angles that should have worked, only to realize too late that Hill was already gone. Once Tyreek settled into the Chiefs' offense, his role evolved beyond returns and trick plays. At first, he was the gadget guy, but by his 2nd season, he wanted to be known as a legitimate wide receiver. He studied tape non-stop, improved his route running, and looked for any edge to complement his speed. It helped that Kansas City was about to unleash Patrick Mahomes. With an effortless rocket arm, Mahomes became the perfect quarterback to exploit Hill's otherworldly burst. The duo quickly became a nightmare for every defensive coordinator in the league. If Mahomes broke the pocket, corners and safeties had to track Hill for extra seconds, which might as well have been an eternity. He'd dash to an open space, Mahomes would fling the ball deep, and just like that, another touchdown. Fans across the league noticed that whenever Tyreek got the ball in his hands, he seemed to have an extra gear no one else could reach. He set new personal bests in receptions, yards, and touchdowns, leading the Chiefs to multiple playoff appearances. However, postseason disappointments became a recurring theme until they finally put it all together. In the 2019 season, Tyreek battled a shoulder injury early on, but when he was healthy, it felt like he never missed a beat. The Chiefs had their sights set on the Lombardi Trophy, and Hill's speed was front and center in that pursuit. Whether he was taking the top off a defense or drawing double coverage, he created constant mismatches. Their magic moment arrived in Super Bowl 54 against the San Francisco 49ers. Down by double digits in the 4th quarter, Kansas City needed a miracle. On 3rd and long, Mahomes heaved a deep pass that found Tyreek, who had slipped behind the defense. That one highlight shifted momentum, launching the Chiefs to 21 unanswered points and their first Super Bowl victory in half a century. Hill ended the game with over 100 receiving yards, delivering a performance that silenced any lingering doubts. Success, however, comes with a target on your back. The following year, the Chiefs marched right back to the big game, only to be stifled by Tom Brady and a dominant Buccaneers defense. KC's offense, including Hill, struggled to even reach the end zone, and the disappointment signaled a shift in the team's future. As Tyreek entered the final year of his contract, negotiations with the Chiefs grew tense. He had outperformed his deal and wanted to be paid accordingly, but Kansas City had other financial priorities. In a jaw-dropping move, the Chiefs traded him to the Miami Dolphins for a flurry of draft picks, and Miami immediately made him the highest paid receiver in the league. Reactions were split. Some believed Tyreek would vanish from the spotlight without Mahomes. Others argued that joining rising quarterback Tua Tagovailoa and pairing with Jalen Waddle could create an offense fueled by pure speed. Hill embraced the challenges, promising he'd continue shattering expectations. Once in Miami, he reinvented himself again, improving in short yardage routes and underneath plays. Observers saw that Tyreek wasn't just a one-trick deep threat, he was a versatile weapon. Tua found new confidence, launching deep throws with surprising precision while also relying on Tyreek's ability to break short passes for big gains. Doubters disappeared quickly. In his first season as a Dolphin, Hill racked up a career-best 119 receptions for over 1,700 yards, proving the Chiefs weren't the only team he could lead to the playoffs. The very next year, he stepped onto the field, proclaiming he wanted to be the first receiver in NFL history to rack up 2,000 receiving yards in a single season. He got off to a blazing start, torching defenses for long touchdowns and racking up chunk plays. Injuries slowed him down in the later weeks, but he still came dangerously close with 1,799 yards. Though the Dolphins have faced tough opponents in the postseason, Hill's presence has brought a fresh energy to Miami. His leadership in the locker room, combined with those game-breaking plays, proved that the speedster can thrive under any system system or quarterback. From a Georgia kid racing through small-town fields to a record-setting athlete at some of the highest levels of football, Tyreek Hill's story is as dramatic as it gets. He faced the shame of accusations that threatened to end his career and the uncertainty of a draft stock weighed down by controversy. Time after time, he earned second chances and proved he was worthy of them on the field. Now, as he continues to build chemistry in Miami, fans can't help but wonder, will he finally become the first NFL receiver to break that 2,000-yard mark? And if he does, could he add another championship ring to his growing legacy? One thing is certain, Tyreek Hill has spent his entire life outrunning expectations. Whether it's defenders on the gridiron or doubts about his own potential, he shows no sign of slowing down. And if we've learned anything from watching the Cheetah, it's that he's always just one explosive play away from making history all over again.